I'd like to convene the meeting of the City Council for April 19th, 2021. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the roll?
Vaughn.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Shower. Kenny.
Here.
Gustafson.
Here.
Clistic.
Present.
Belzak.
Here.
6 present and 1 absent.
We have a quorum that takes us to questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature. This is for anyone who would like to share anything with the City Council that's not on our agenda tonight or is on our agenda, but they don't want to wait till that item comes up. Anyone like to address the council? If none, it takes us to the approval of our minutes for April 5th, 2021. Motion to approve. Alderman Kennedy, seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Any questions or comments? If none, the roll.
Kenny.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Gustafson.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent.
Minutes have been approved. It takes us to receiving of communications. Do any of the aldermen have communications tonight they'd like to share? Alderman Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a communication this evening from Sharon Podorowski, the wife of former Alderman John Podorowski, I apologize, with her disapproval of the zoning ordinances for the Steak and Shake. She believes Darien's a nice place to live and doesn't see us having another place for cannabis sales. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Alderwoman Sullivan?
Thank you, Mayor. I have been receiving extensive communications from residents located over in the Waterfall Glen development on the south side of I-55 at Lamont Road regarding the proposed Darien Heights residences that appeared before Planning and Zoning on April 7th. It was continued to this Wednesday, April 21st. There was a meeting with the developer and some of the homeowners on April 15th that I attended, and also spoke with them separately via personal conversations as well as emails and phone calls. So there's quite a bit of communication going on. I know many of the aldermen have received it, as well as members of the Planning and Zoning Committee, and just asking everyone to take extra special attention to read all the communications as well as the packet that will be presented from the developer and other things, because it will be coming to City Council at some point in the month of May.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Alderman Clistek?
Thank you, Mayor. I received communication. This is for Alderman Vaughn and Belchek's ward. A gentleman that lives on 67th Avenue sent a video of someone doing nearly 40 miles an hour on 67th Avenue. I know we put the sign up there. Police chief has doing additional patrols, but just want to mention that. I'll pass the email on to you. Is there any next steps that could be done, or we pretty much did whatever we really could? I know we've put a lot of effort on 67th Street.
Well, I could let Chief respond, but I think we are still looking at the data, Chief, on 67th Street.
I think we've looked at it quite extensively. I think next step is probably looking at some type of traffic calming, because there is quite a bit of enforcement there, and not heeding to the enforcement. So I think you're right with next steps, and we'll have to look at what the next steps are.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Alderman Gustafson?
Yeah, I've got one communication I just wanted to talk about that I had last week, and I've been looking at exploring potential businesses that could move into the Steak and Shake building, and one possibility that I thought of was an A&W root beer restaurant. So I reached out to their corporate office, And surprisingly, I actually received a call back from Dave Crowley, who heads up their entire franchise business for A&W. So he's like the top 5 guy in the company. And they're located in Lexington, Kentucky. And Dave indicated that there is a definite interest in them coming into our area. Right now, they're in expansion mode. They were on hold years ago, and now they're expanding quite a bit. He actually informed me that the owner of the next closest restaurant, which is in North Aurora, that franchisor is looking to add another restaurant. So he's reaching out to him to get him involved in this. So I'm supposed to be having another communication later this week with them just to see the status of where they're at and what the interest is. But Dave Crowley indicated that if this specific franchisor is not interested, he's got a list of plenty others who are now looking to expand into the Chicago area. So I think we've got a real potential here to move into it. And I think we just need, I feel we need to get aggressive now with going after businesses to come into Darien. I mean, it's a great community. And I'm not sure if this is something that the EDC could get involved with, of looking into actually going after specific companies to get them to come into the city.
Well, Eric, as I explained to you the other day in an email, the EDC's task this last year has been to maintain contact with all of our business community as a way of seeing how they were doing and what they might need in terms of assistance. When we did that, that's why we were able to give out that $310,000 back to our restaurants last year, which greatly assisted all of them. Mr. Gombeck has worked with many of our center owners, Mr. Manos, as well as others. If you look across the street from the Brookhaven Shopping Center, the Chase Bank, the haircut place, I think the Bun Cake, the Starbucks are all there because of Dan's efforts. So I would like Dan to become part of this effort. I think whatever communication you're making.
Yeah, I've had a conversation with Dan today.
You know, I had a conversation with the owner of Shanahan's in Woodridge about the possibility of working with moving to Darien. The thing is, you know, we talked about the available sites that we had in Darien, and it's not as if we're rich in real estate where we can have a company come in and build a new site. So I agree with you that we need to be aggressive in terms of promoting ourselves. I think we do a pretty good job of that now, and I'd like to see Mr. Gombeck part of this effort with this A&W, if you would share that communication.
And I had that conversation with Dan today.
Okay.
So we're on the same page with that.
All right. Anything else? All right. That takes us to our mayor's report. And it's always very nice when we can give out a Heart of Darien Award. As you know, this is an award that we developed a couple of years ago, and during COVID last year, we were unable to give out this award because we were not meeting in person. I think the last one we gave out was to I believe it was Kathy Minardi, and which was something that she really treasured. And this is an award that I consider very important because it really signifies an individual's effort towards the city of Darien. So I'd like to read the following. Our Darien community, as we know, has a wonderful motto, a nice place to live. And while appearing very simple, is an apt description of our community and explains why so many people select Darien as their home. While our nice place to live includes great schools, an excellent business community, and many civic-minded service and social groups, one aspect stands out to anyone who has lived here, and that is our wonderful volunteer spirit. Darien is rich in volunteers who give of their time for the betterment of our community. And our latest Heart of Darien winner is an individual who has dedicated herself not only to our community, she has worked diligently to preserve the historical heritage of our community. As a member of the Darien Historical Society, she has taken up the task of inventorying, cataloging, displaying, and preserving the Darien Historical Society's collection of artifacts housed in the Old Lake School and Museum. Even though she did not have an education in museum studies, she taught herself the means to catalog all the items in the Historical Society's collection. These artifacts cataloged in a card index and in a computerized database which she established. Her work, while self-taught, is impeccably done and easily accessible to the Society's patrons. When residents visit the Historical Society, they are quickly drawn to each of the display cases which house and highlight historical relics of the city going back into the 1800s. She has given a tremendous amount of time to this preservation and cataloging, and the members of the Darien Historical Society, along with this board, are indebted to her for her efforts. She is one of those volunteers who, while dedicating themselves to the work of one organization, is providing a service to all of Darien's residents. Her commitment to our community is her way of giving back to a community that has enriched her life and in turn enriches our lives. While she has given her heart to her work for the Historical Society, she has shared her heart with our residents through her work, and in turn, we honor Deborah Kiris by giving her this Heart of Darien Award.
She had no idea. She kept asking me yesterday, why do we have to go? Oh my God.
Now you gotta come forward, Deb.
I love when people are surprised. It makes me
Oh my God. Who did this?
I'm not gonna tell you.
That's what you meant, Brian?
This is your Heart of Darien Award.
That's what you meant?
Deborah Kiris,
Yeah.
Historical Society, April 19, 2021. Okay, picture?
Yeah, stand up in front. Stand in flag.
Yeah. Yeah, go in the front if you can. Is it me? Am I making it echo?
Shake.
There you go. Very good.
Would you like to say a few words?
Oh my God.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this. I can't believe this is happening, but I would have at least dressed up. Thank you everybody so much.
We had to pretend he was making a presentation today.
Oh, and she's not?
She's not.
Oh, God.
No, she's not making the presentation.
Well, I think she should.
Go to the front so I can get your family with you with the flower. It was all me. You guys were in the back. I had no idea. Isn't that awesome?
That was good. That was good.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're so welcome, and I'll make sure you get a copy of it, okay?
Thank you very much. Yeah, she was.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have your
Congratulations, Deborah.
We certainly did. We did.
Welcome.
Oh my God. You guys. Go give your speech.
It's always a joy to be able to give out one of those awards.
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
I have a copy of what I read, and I also have a copy of the nomination, which I'll get to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, that takes us to another form of ceremony tonight, and that is Chief Thomas is going to be recognizing several of Darien's finest. Right?
Thank you, Mayor. Party's over. Mayor Mike Case and our city administrator, Brian Vanna, often ask me to have officers sworn in during our council meeting with a number in a small ceremony. I've always been reluctant to do that. We have a lot of good people that
Greg,
came
could you
on the
lift your
job.
mic up? I'm sorry, that mic's a little low. Yeah, lift it. Yeah, thanks.
No problem. That came on the as police officers who fail on many occasions to complete the whole training process. And it seems unfair that because we go through a very formal swearing-in ceremony and then terminate their employment shortly thereafter. So always been reluctant to have that type of ceremony. So we decided to do something a little bit different tonight. So I also want to give you a little bit of background of how difficult it is to become an officer. You have to make an application. Sounds simple, and it pretty much is, but there's a number of requirements just to apply, with requiring a valid driver's license, being a U.S. citizen, firearms owner's identification card. You have to pass what's called a power test, physical fitness test before you can even take the written exam. Then you take a written exam that's, you have to pass at 70th percentile. Then there's a structured oral interview. Again, you have to pass at the 70th percentile. The scores between the written and the oral are added together, and then you're placed on an eligibility list. We then ask eligible candidates if they have military experience, college education, or an on-duty, like a cadet program or a CSO program. They can apply for additional points. And then there's a final list. When there's an opening, typically through a retirement, we go in order of the eligibility list, and then we do our due diligence. And that includes a polygraph, where you can fail the polygraph by telling the truth, and you can fail the polygraph, obviously, by lying. So if somebody comes in on a polygraph and tells us that he or she drove drunk 10 times in the last month, we're not going to accept them as a police officer. The next step is psychological examination. There's 5 portions to that test, examination, and a lot of different things go on there. They look to see if that person has a propensity to use too much force, a person that has a propensity to not to engage, all these different types of things in the psychological examination. Then a background investigation is done. There, I think just the form to fill out to conduct the background investigation is like 38 pages long, very intensive, that we go through criminal history, traffic history, financial history, recommendations, and the like. There's a drug screening and a medical examination that has to occur. Then they're hired. There's an orientation. And then they go off to a basic academy where they're trained. There again is a written examination. They have to pass at a 70 percentile in order to be certified by the state of Illinois. You have to have the state certification in order to be a police officer. Then they come back to the police department, and we take what they learned in a general way, say they learned how to write a report and how to write a ticket and the like. But they haven't learned our software, so they learn our traffic ticketing software, our report writing software, and those type of things in-house. And then they go on a 16-week on-the-job training program with a field training officer. Every call that they go on is reviewed and documented, and it's a whole big process to get through the FTO program. Once they're through the FTO program, then they have a year's probation, and within that year's probation, we do what's called check rides, so they still have to ride with an FTO periodically, and we also do weekly reviews versus daily reviews. The officers that you'll introduce today have met all those requirements and are completing the balance of their probationary period. These officers went through all the due diligence of hiring that I talked about. We wanted to make sure that we're hiring the people with the best character, with values and high principles. They went through all the training, so we have very confident, best trained and skilled officers. So that's kind of why you have to go through all that stuff, and it's embarrassing sometimes to do all that due diligence just to terminate somebody. I had a horrible situation in Aurora. I hired 8 people on Monday, and I fired 4 of them on Thursday because they went to school and failed the power test, the physical fitness test. So I don't like to run into that. So now these guys are good to go, and so glad that they're here, and I'm happy to stand here next to, well, 6 feet from Paulina Noga. So if she comes in with her family, and Paulina Noga has badge number 310. Well, she doesn't, I do, but she'll get it shortly. Paulina was hired on September 9th, 2019 as an officer. It should be noted that she was a community service officer for us for nearly 2 years prior to becoming an officer. Paulina was sworn in on September 9th, 2019 by a fire and police commissioner in a small informal setting with her family by her side. When we complete background investigations, we ask prior employers to describe the potential employee. We spoke to Paulina's supervisor, Officer Mike Belcastro, where Paulina was an auxiliary officer with the Western Springs Police Department. We were told Paulina has an excellent attendance record, often arriving early and staying late, very helpful, very nice person, absolutely honest and dependable. Once done with her training, Officer Noga was assigned to the Patrol Division and on Shift 2, Squad B, under the leadership of Sergeant Jump. Her badge will be pinned on by her dad, Ziggy, and other members of Paulina's family are here in support. So, yeah, right here is good because in front of that camera. Now that Paulina has been through a fully vetting process, passed an extraordinary hiring process, a demanding training program, I think we owe it to Paulina to more formally welcome her as a member of the Darien Police Department and an employee of the city of Darien. So Mayor, Aldermen, city staff, members of the audience here and at home, introduce you to Officer Paulina Noga. Awesome. Paulina doesn't know it, but she has to give a 2-minute speech, so. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Officer Conrad Cano, badge number 327, and his wife, Vanessa. Officer Cano's got a couple dynamite kids, but he tells me that it might be easier to get through the ceremony with just his wife tonight. So I forgot who he's on. Grandma? Yes. Yeah, Grandma's watching the kids. So, but the kids were at the swearing-in ceremony, and they were very decent, awesome kids. Officer Cano was hired on January 2nd, 2020 as an officer and sworn in on the same day by FPC Commissioner. Small informal setting with his family there in support. Officer Cano was a general contractor at McBath Construction before coming to us. The owner, Mike McBath, said of Conrad, punctual and dependable. Integrity is a 10 out of 10. Attendance record perfect, kind, professional, and dependable. Officer Cano, too, has been fully vetted and well trained, that we talked about already. Conrad has been assigned to night shift patrol under the leadership of Sergeant Lorick. While at the Basic Training Academy, Officer Cano earned 2 very prestigious awards. The Valedictorian Award is the academic award that goes to the officer who had the highest class average on the 12 weekly test during the 14-week Basic Police Training Academy. Recruit Cano's average was 95.44%. Officer Graves' award is the highest award a recruit can earn. It was named after George Graves, who was the chief of the Downers Grove Police Department and the founder of the Suburban Law Enforcement Academy in 1994. This award is voted on by the recruits' peers. It's given to the recruit who exemplified leadership, effort, integrity, and overall positive attitude during the 14-week academy. Officer Cano's wife, Vanessa, will pin Officer Cano's badge on him. Oh, man. Everybody's wearing a vest, so it's so much easier to get that thing on. So Mayor, Alderman, city staff, and members of the audience here and at home, I introduce you to Officer Conrad Cano, badge number 327. Awesome. Continuing, I'd like to introduce you to Officer Nicholas Nelson, badge number 326. Officer Nelson was hired on January 2nd, 2020 as an officer and sworn in on the same day. Officer Nelson went through the same vetting process and training program that I've already described. Officer Nelson worked as a veterans administrator at the College of DuPage. His supervisor, Jose Alvarez, said, "Nick stood out as a leader. He is well-liked and always on time. He is patient and gets along very well with people," and felt that Nick would be an excellent police officer. Nick has been assigned to the night shift patrol under the leadership of Sergeant Lork, and I believe Sergeant Lork will be the individual that will pin Officer Nelson's badge. It's a pretty neat honor to have a boss pin your badge on it. It's a testament to leadership that's been developed in the police department. So it's pretty neat to see that Officer Nelson selected Sergeant Lork to pin it on. So I'd like to welcome Officer Nelson to the Darien Police Department and as employee of the City of Darien. Next, it would have been Officer Mache Catro. So when you look at that spelling, it's pronounced Mache. Badge number 323, however, Mache is unable to attend. I think he had a family commitment that he could not get out of and shouldn't have gotten out of. I think it was somebody's 93rd birthday. Officer Catro was hired on September 14th, 2020, and sworn in on the same day. He came from Rockdale Police Department, so he didn't have to go attend the police academy, as he was already certified as an officer by the state of Illinois. He did, however, have to pass the same vetting process and field training. Chief Robert Dykstra of the Rockdale Police Department described Officer Catro as having a perfect attendance record, usually an hour early to work, dependable, honest, gets along with coworkers, and has a great work ethic. Mache was assigned to day shift patrol under the leadership of Sergeant Greenenberg. So I just wanted to mention that he and I are doing an undercover investigation, and we had to disguise ourselves. So that's why we had that mask on in the picture. All right. Next up is our new member of our police department, our Canine Axel, and his handler, Dave Malazzo. And I believe Dave's family came with as well. Canines and kids always steal the show, so that's good with me. All right, a little bit about going on here. Axel was purchased on September 8th, 2020. Axel and Dave then had to attend a training and pass a stringent test to allow Axel to operate as a police canine. It's kind of a certification for the canine and the canine handler. They don't get to just go out and do work. They have to pass some stringent requirements as well. They are assigned to day shift patrol under the supervision of Sergeant Greenenberg. Though Axel has been with us a very short time, he's already shown his value with 12 deployments in 2020, 10 tracks and 2 vehicle searches. A couple of examples of his work include tracking an offender in a burglary where Axel located the clothing that was worn by the offender, Another time, he tracked an offender in a stolen, after a stolen vehicle, locating the offender's wallet, in the police department we call that a clue, which led to the eventual arrest of the offender. Dave is a 10-year veteran with the Darien Police Department and had a 1.5 year experience with the Worth Police Department before coming with us. His wife Christy and children Nicolette, Angelina, and Juliana, hope I got those right, join him tonight. Did I get it good? All right. But I'm not exactly sure why Dave needed a canine, and I'll explain that after this fast video. This is Dave in action.
Stop! Stop right there! Stop! Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Stop for us on the golf course. What the hell?
I think Dave can outrun that dog.
Wow.
He's getting up there with my speed. Dave had great breath control, as you saw. Even though running, you can clearly make out that he was in foot pursuit. 2 armed subjects. Dave gives out the location, direction of travel, a full description of the offenders. As Paul Harvey would say, and now the rest of the story. On January 22nd, 2020, police responded to an armed carjacking on 75th Street. The offenders threatened the victim with a handgun, then fled the scene in the victim's car. Officer Milazzo spotted the car, or spotted the offenders after they abandoned the car, and engaged them in a foot chase that you just saw. Both offenders were taken into custody and the weapon was recovered. But wait, there's more. On February 6, 2020, Officer Milazzo assisted with the apprehension of 2 subjects that had stolen a car and later used it in an armed robbery. Thanks to Officer Milazzo's efforts, these 2 armed and dangerous subjects were apprehended without issue. On the same day, Officer Milazzo heard a police broadcast for shots fired during an attempted carjacking. Officer Milazzo stopped the vehicle, or attempted to stop the vehicle, and pursued it until he lost sight of it. The pursuit was picked up again by Illinois State Police and Chicago Police until the vehicle exited at Martin Luther King Drive, where it struck a pole. The occupants fled on foot, but all 4 offenders were apprehended and multiple firearms recovered. The vehicle was confirmed steal out of Chicago. February 10th, 2020, Officer Milazzo deployed spike strips in a stolen vehicle, forcing it to stop. The offenders then fled on foot, but were caught and charged with various crimes. Also on February 10th, Officer Milazzo attempted a traffic stop on a stolen vehicle, which fled. Spike strips were deployed and 3 occupants were taken into custody and 2 were in possession of firearms. I think it's hard being married to an officer, the work hours, the commitment, the fear, but to take on the additional responsibility of a dog is above and beyond, and we appreciate it. So, Dave, I don't have Axel's badge number yet, or badge, physical badge, so that we can't do that, but Christy? Can't give you a bouquet of flowers in appreciation. And then we went, because they said, keep them in the water. Always do it on cold. That type of police service without a canine, I can't wait to see what Dave can do with the canine. So, ladies and gentlemen, new canine officer Axel and his handler Dave Milazzo. Man.
Busy February. Busy February.
Axel's like, beautiful dog.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
It's a good-looking family right there. So, another quick video, just to introduce the next segment, the award segment. This is Officers Throm and Pastic, who saved a kid from choking on a grape. Every time they would had their kid inverted into a typical CPR move, hit back blows in order to dislodge the grape. Every time the grape would come out, because you could hear the kid crying, every time it came out, it stayed in the mouth, and as soon as the kid could get a breath, he would suck that grape back in. So eventually they hit him hard enough to actually dislodge the grape. So good job there. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Officer Justin O'Brien. And then because of the situation with filing people in and out with the COVID, then we'll talk about Sergeant Jump. But Officer O'Brien and his wife Monica first. Awesome, good to see you guys. In March of 2020, Officer, oops, too quick. In March of 2020, Officer Justin O'Brien and Sergeant Austin Jump responded to a single-family residence for a call of a subject who was unconscious and not breathing. Officer O'Brien arrived first, finding a 49-year-old male unconscious with agonal breathing and no pulse. Officer O'Brien began chest compressions. When Sergeant Jump arrived, he applied an automated external defibrillator, AED, and administered 1 shock. Officer O'Brien continued with chest compressions until medics arrived on the scene. They advised that the subject's pulse had returned. The subject was transported to the hospital. Due to the efforts of Officer O'Brien and Sergeant Jump, the subject survived and made a full recovery. And you already got your pin, right?
Yes, Chief.
Awesome. So that's what the pin would look like. Wear it on your above your name tag. And so very appreciative of the work and effort that was done on that scene. And obviously that 49-year-old man is extremely happy. So I introduce you to Officer Justin O'Brien. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Monica. So next we'll bring in Sergeant Jump. Awesome. Hey, Austin. This makes the 3rd time that Sergeant Jump has received the Life-Saving Award. So you only wear one of those Life-Saving Awards, so he will not receive one tonight. Sergeant Jump received the Life-Saving Award in 2014 after he saved an unconscious 25-year-old female who overdosed from heroin. She was not breathing and had no pulse. Sergeant Jump administered 2 doses of Narcan and continued with CPR. Medics arrived and took over the subject's care. The female made a full recovery. In November of 2015, Sergeant Jump responded to a 31-year-old female in cardiac arrest. Sergeant Jump found the female unconscious, not breathing, and no pulse. After about 60 seconds of chest compressions, the subject had a weak pulse. An AED was placed on the victim, and the AED advised to shock. The shock was administered, and chest compressions continued until medics arrived. Medics applied 2 more shocks and found a pulse. A few days later, the subject was released from the hospital with a full recovery. Sergeant Austin Jump. Thank you, Austin. There's a lot of awards that are given out, and I didn't want to bring in a whole litany of people, but I do want to give some recognition. So the Alliance Against Intoxicated Motorists, more commonly known as AIM, look at departments and honor officers who have made a commitment to impaired driving enforcement. In 2020, AIM gave awards to Officer Jennifer Dollins, Tony Ruby, Dave Malazzo, Luke Smoji, and Sergeant Austin Jump for the work that they've did with impaired driving enforcement. I receive a lot of letters of appreciation throughout the year. I mean a lot, probably upwards towards 100. I would like to read an example of what I received last week. Dear Chief Thomas, I just want to say thank you to the force for helping me with my son yesterday. Between his poor start in life due to poor choices by his birth mom and typical teenager angst, Yesterday was a difficult day for us. The two officers who, looking at the call for service, was Officer Giza and Officer Kevin Yo, who assisted were kind, understanding, thorough, and helpful. I hesitated to call, but I am so glad that I did. It shows my son, who needs boundaries, that the community will assist when parenting him has gone beyond just me. I also received several phone calls, but I'll tell you about one that made you an officer, Mayor. So a call that came into Mayor Marquez told me he received a call from a woman regarding a police call for service. The caller advised she did not know the offender's name, officer's name, who responded to her home regarding her husband having a heart attack. Paramedics had attempted to revive the husband, but unfortunately the husband passed. Again, we looked up the call for service, and the officer that they were describing was Officer Keith Keogh. The caller advised paramedics were great, and the officer was outstanding. He stood by until family members arrived, so she didn't have to be alone. He was a calming and reassuring voice. Even on traffic stops, we received compliments. I received this yesterday. I wanted to take a second to send you a small note. I had an interaction with one of your officers this morning. I was taking my son to a baseball game at Eisenhower School off of 75th Street. I was running late. Bad coach. That was him putting in parentheses, not my comment. And wasn't paying much attention to my driving as I should have. Bad example to my son. Again, I didn't put that in there, he did. Officer Smoji stopped me for my infraction. He was extremely respectful and was an utmost professional during the stop. He was well within his right to cite me for my driving, but he gave me a break and was understanding of the situation. It was greatly appreciated. Please let your officer know that he is out there doing a good job. His stop and his professionalism was top-notch. Keep up the good work. I can tell you that we receive a number of pizzas and other meals throughout the year, and we appreciate all those acts of kindness. We also receive gift cards and checks and significant amounts of money. The gift cards we've donated to worthy causes. The checks we've returned to the writer with a thank you. We have a professional police department, and the community, I think, appreciates it. So last up, I'd like to introduce you to Canine Nico, who has badge number 393 and has served the city honorably for 8 years. There he is. Probably pretty tired. We're almost done. Nico was purchased April 8th, 2013, and will retire at the end of his workday tomorrow. Nico and his handler, Tony Ruby, were most recently assigned to Shift 2, Squad B, under the leadership of Sergeant Lorick. We have incomplete data, but for the years that I was chief, Nico has recovered over 400 pounds of drugs, 15 guns, and seized over $1 million in cash. Nico has a great track record of tracking offenders who fled from the police. For example, in 2019, 6 out of 13 tracks the offender was found by Nico, and in several situations located evidence that was discarded by offenders as they fled. In one situation, during the recovery of a stolen car, the offender started to flee, but when Nico was deployed, the two offenders gave up. I wonder why. With this type of service to the city and being such a backup to his fellow officers, it is with great pleasure that we show our appreciation to a member of the police family who has given much of his life to serving and protecting our community. He has earned the privilege to live out his life free of work and in the loving care of Officer Tony Ruby and Tony's family, his wife Erin, daughters Olivia and Hadley. Nico, we wish you the best. We'll miss you. We honor you. I've seen the dog interact with Tony. Actually, I think on a couple of national nights out, I've seen him interact with his wife and kids as well. And it's just heartwarming to see that happening. So, Tony, here's the badge. The retirement badge is on its way. So this is Nico, who will be retiring today or tomorrow. Like any of us speak dog and can say, oh, no, that wasn't a thank you. Flip them down. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you don't have any questions, that will complete my report for today.
Chief, there's flowers there. There's one more batch
Oh.
of flowers.
Hold on. Thank you. Good.
Big Squares took over my job tonight. He's got a real camera.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Chief Thomas, as we watch this tonight, I don't know how everybody else felt, but I felt a great sense of pride in our Darien Police Department and a comfort in knowing that we have such excellent people out there every day serving and protecting us, and I think the council would echo that. So many thanks to you for your leadership. Many thanks to all the officers in the Darien Police Department.
Thank you. I'll pass that information along. And we were cycling people over from the police department, and we were live streaming it in the police department, so everybody got to see each other's activities. And obviously, we told everybody what's happening tonight, so they could log in from home as well. So, thanks everybody for your time.
Thank you, Chief Thomas.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
That takes us to our next item under our mayor's report. We invited Phil Halliburton from Commonwealth Edison to join us tonight. Phil sent us a presentation tonight, which I hope several of you have. Phil, the floor is yours.
Thank you very
Just
much.
hope the power doesn't go out while you're making it.
I hope and pray not on.
Oh, there's a sense of humor.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. So, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to come back again. It's always a pleasure to be in front of the council, in front of you, Mayor. So thank you very much for having us here. I have with me 3 of my colleagues tonight, and they're kind of just here for more moral support, and also they're subject matter experts. There are specific questions that you guys may have to help answer some of these questions. So I have, and I hope I don't get this wrong because I got it right before, Mark Plaskowski. All right. And Kevin Drury from our veg management team. And I have Marquis Sales, who's here from our reliability team. So with that, I'm not sure if you guys are going to project the presentation, but if not, I'll be more than happy to just run through it. So the mayor asked me just to come in and to present to you some of the work that we've done last year and work that we have planned moving forward this year for the city of Darien. Normally I would do this presentation after we do our annual report towards June, July, and usually we'd come in around August to do it, but the mayor asked me to move it up this year because we know we've had some activity in the city, and so he wanted to make sure that you as a council and also the constituents for Darien also knew what work was happening. So in the presentation that was sent, there are 5 items that we're going to go through, and I'm going to go very quickly because the mayor just asked me to make sure that I focus on certain things. But we have our combat infrastructure and system improvement plan, the Darien reliability performance, our Darien system improvement work, our voltage optimization program, and our smart LED streetlight program that we have initiated. So on page 2 of the presentation that you have, the ComEd electrical infrastructure plan. So that is just a high-level overview for everyone to understand when ComEd does our yearly review and when we do what we call our maintenance and our preventative maintenance and corrective maintenance program. These are the different items that we look at. A lot of these are obviously proactive programs that we do, but some of them are also, as items come up or different issues come up on the system, corrective action, and we go into some of them maybe in the short term, usually when we have an outage, to priority to get the customers back in power safely and quickly as possible, and then we may return at a later time to do the full work that we need to do to restore and to upgrade or to change out or to repair whatever needs to be done. So page 2 basically just covers that, and some of those items that we also do include, and I've spoken to the council before about, are like our distributed automation equipment that helps to cut down on the size and duration of outages, manhole assessments and refurbishments, the wood pole replacement programs where we go out and we do inspections with Osmos to check the poles and make sure that either if they need to be replaced or reinforced that we've done, and certain things like that. Page 3 goes specifically and starts specifically to talk about Darien's reliability. So first, let me just say this. I'm going to start out high level because I know that there are some things that, like I said, have happened on the system, and we want to make sure we cover those with you. But as a whole, Darien's reliability as a whole is at a 99.99% reliability rate. Now, obviously, no system is 100% perfect. We do our best at all times to mitigate as many outages as we possibly can, but obviously we cannot stop every single outage. And when that happens, again, we have our team of dedicated employees, including Marquis and Kevin's group, to go out and make sure we do as much as we can to assess those issues that come up and try to correct them or try to mitigate them as much as possible. One of the things that we're looking at also is the safety and the CADI. So when we talk about safety and CADI, is the frequency of outages, the average frequency of outages, customer experiences, and the CADI would be the average duration in terms of length of time in minutes a customer experiences. And what we've seen is pre our EIMA legislation that went through in 2012, we've seen actually a favorability on the safety, the frequency, as a 57% positive rate increase in Darien, and on the CADI, a 38% average increase. So because of the work that we've done since that piece of legislation has passed and all the improvements that we've done, we've seen a consistent upgrade and improvement on the system. Again, we do have certain issues. So I know, for example, on March 10th, we had a fairly significant outage in the city of Darien. We had a tree that came down in a specific section of Darien, Manning Road, sorry, the vicinity of Manning Road between Fairview and Queens Court. And what happened is it took out what we call a double circuit. So it's a double feeder. So it's 2 feeders that feed part of the city of Darien. And when it came down, it did significant damage. Took down 3 of our poles, a lot of equipment, all the wiring, everything associated with that. Because of that, it caused basically three different outages, or 3 outages on those 2 feeders. And those outages primarily was for the damage, and then we also had a small outage that was an unscheduled but intentional outage that we had to do in order to effect the repairs safely and properly. So that is where that came in. And then shortly after that, we had, which was actually kind of a weird fluke, we had an outage that happened on March 17th, which was an underground cable outage that, again, the city had reached out to me and the mayor reached out to me about. And that actually happened in the section of underground that we haven't had an outage. We had Marquis and his group look at the numbers. We hadn't had an outage in that section in around, I think, 15, 20 years. So it just happened to happen at that particular time. The 2 outages that happened on March 10th were on our Whiskey 804 feeder and our Whiskey 809 feeder. And again, subsequent to that, we've done repairs. We had to do repairs I think a few weeks after that, and actually I think we completed the final repairs about 2 weeks ago in the city for that section. So just wanted to let you know that has been completed. The underground cable, that was actually completed that night or that day when that outage occurred. We went out, had crews come out and respond and repair that and do the permanent repair for that. In terms of system improvement work, we have installed, so since 2012 from 2012 to 2020, we've installed 42 distribution automation devices and smart switches. Again, those are the equipment that helps to cut down the size and duration of outages. So, and just for numbers purposes, don't quote me on these numbers, but just for ease of understanding, say if a feeder has 1,000 customers on it. Before, if there was an issue, it would lock out and maybe those 1,000 customers would be out. With the distribution automation, what it does is it separates those out, and the equipment talks to each other. So say now it's in 4 sections of 250. When something happens on that feeder, the items talk to each other to say which section is the issue in. And then what it does is it will close out at first, minimally. You may just see it as a slight blip. So say if it's a windy day and a tree hits a branch, it might tip in and out. You might not even see it, just like a slight dip. Then if it sees that it's still there, hits it a little harder, might stay on for a little bit longer, you'll see a little bit of an outage. If it comes back, then it checks again to see if it's still there, checks again, and then after that, it'll lock out. When it locks out, then the equipment again talks to each other and says, where's the problem specifically? And then the areas, once it isolates where that issue is, it will bring the other customers back up. So what might have been an outage that would have affected, say, 1,000 customers for whatever period of time, it now minimizes that outage. So we have those items in place. We've completed storm hardening solutions, including installing 6,800 feet of spacer cable and trip savers. So spacer cable is a kind of a more resilient cable that we put in certain places where we have very, very heavy tree contact. And so that's to help with that same type of situation where we have issues where there's a lot of tree contact or a wooded area. That spacer cable is a little bit more resilient. Intelligent substation upgrades. We've included and we've done some substation upgrades to what is technically considered our Downers Grove substation, but it's in Darien, including most recently and last year we appreciate the approval from the board or from the council for the antenna that goes in to help with that distribution automation communication. And then we have future improvements that we have planned, so installing an additional 4 distributed automation devices in 2021. This year is cycle trimming on 19 of the circuits, the vegetation circuits in the municipality. And then we've installed voltage optimization technology on 13 circuits. The voltage optimization, basically what it does is it allows us to be able to regulate the voltage on our system and allows for customers' equipments to, one, not use as much electricity, so it saves on, it becomes more energy efficient for their equipment, and it also saves on the life of their equipment. So motors don't run as hard as they do, your equipment doesn't run as hard as it needs to, and then in part of that process is customers save money on their energy bills because they're using less electricity. And then again, our inspection of the overhead circuits that we usually do, we do visual inspections, and we also do thermography inspections on a number of the feeders within the municipality. We also do our preventative maintenance cycle, this preventative maintenance cycle program. So we have wood pole inspections, treatments, and replacement program. The program operates on a 10-year cycle. So it's not that we only come into Darien every 10 years. There's certain poles that we check throughout the municipality at certain times, but it's on a 10-year cycle. And when we do, again, we look either if they need to be replaced or if they need to be reinforced or if the poles are fine. And then we do that, we tag the pole so that we know what's going on. We also do our veg management program, so we do our preventative maintenance, tree trimming, and removal on a 4-year cycle. Again, a number of those tree trimming cycles are happening this year. We had one section that, and we thank Alderwoman Sullivan for bringing it to our attention. We had an area in her district that was seeing a repeated issues, and some of them were momentaries, and some of them were sustained outages, but a majority of them were due to tree related. We did everything that we possibly could to mitigate as much of it as possible. But we had a meeting with the Alderwoman in December, and we went through some of her concerns and some of the concerns of her constituency that was brought to her. She brought that to us, and through our veg management program and Kevin and his team, they agreed to help move up the schedule in terms of doing some of that veg management that was scheduled for later in the year. They've already actually began and actually completed some of those circuits already in the city of Darien. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And then, again, our overhead circuit inspection through visual inspections, through thermography, where we go out and we use a special lens basically to see if there are infrared spots or hot spots in our equipment that shows that equipment might be getting ready to fail. Again, voltage optimization, we kind of discussed that in terms of regulating the voltage on our system and trying to save energy for our customers and save on the bill. And then our smart LED streetlight program, where we have worked with the municipalities to go out and replace the ComEd-owned streetlights with our LED streetlights. That also saves the municipality, the city, money on their bill. Also brightens it, makes it more energy efficient, and makes the municipality a greener space. And then we're also doing some areas where we're doing smart nodes. So in addition to just having the LED, we're putting in smart nodes which enable two-way communication for the streetlights and ComEd for repairs and replacements. So if a street light goes out, now it can send us a message that says, I'm out. Or if there's an issue with the street light, then we'll know. And we're doing that in certain, we're partly doing it in certain sections of certain municipalities to make sure that we're running through that process. As of right now, there are 64 existing streetlight fixtures for the city of Darien. 49% of the locations require replacement to an LED fixture and a smart load. From a photocells, 51% of the locations require replacement from the photocell only to the smart node, as the LED fixtures were already placed in those other 51. And the 64 installations are planned to be completed by August of this year. And that concludes my presentation. And I wanted to open it up to see if you had any questions.
Any questions for Phil? Mary?
Hi, Phil. Thank you again, and I appreciate your reliability team taking time with me back in December to walk through everything and to escalate the need for the vegetation trimming in the area of Brickeridge Creek, Creekside Lane, over in Carriageway West, Carlisle Court, and Kimberly Court. But is confidence high that it's all related to vegetation? Because the residents, and there's about 86 of them who have been repeatedly impacted by outages, feel that it's more than just vegetation. They think that there's, whether it's the grid, or they just feel like there's more to it than just vegetation. That's the feedback I continually get.
So I'll tell you and Marquise, feel free to jump in here, but from when we did the analysis prior to our meeting with you in December, a majority of the outages that we saw were veg related. There was one stretch within that area where the feed goes from overhead to underground, that it was a heavily wooded area, and that was a majority of where we were seeing those issues. And so, at this point, we didn't see anything that pointed to equipment issues. Like I said, when we had the outage on the 17th, we knew that was an underground fault. We went out, we fixed it. We haven't seen anything that points to, okay, it's this piece of equipment. And we had, actually, prior to that call, I had reached out and I'd asked not only veg management and reliability, but our construction and maintenance group to go out and do physical walk downs and inspections. And they sent 3 different teams, went out and took a look and walked down on the equipment. Does that mean that there might not be something? I can't say 100% that there's not. But from what our folks went out and looked at and saw and inspected and took pictures of and so forth, we did not see anything out of the ordinary. Anything that we did see that we thought, there were 2 items, I believe, that our reliability engineering team did see that weren't items that said, okay, this is an issue now, but they said, well, you know what, this could become an issue, and to help alleviate that problem, that this might be something that would contribute to a future outage, they put in requests to have those replaced, and those were actually replaced, I believe, actually by the time we had that call in December. I'm 99% sure it was replaced by the time we had that call in December. So we do our best to proactively replace any equipment, or if we see any issues, we try to do that. And then again, the thermography and the visual inspections that we're going to be doing this year again, we'll be looking at those feeders, the speeders that are up for this year's review. And I'll be, discussing that with you, Mayor, when we do our annual report meeting probably in June. So you know which feeders those are, which circuits those are that we're doing those inspections on, and what we found, if there's anything that we found, and what work we've replaced on that.
Phil, people have this a bit of a misguided belief that all the lines should be buried and the problems occur because of vegetation. And having gone through this with you a number of times over 20-something years, I realize there's almost as much problems with underground as there is with
overhead.
Above. And I realized back when we had the substation fire and we were out for all those days, we had significant improvements in what was then my ward and is now Mary's ward in terms of underground. Could you explain to people that one is not preferable over another?
It's I don't know if I should have Marquise answer that question, because it's one of those situations where every system has its pros and its cons. So I will say this, I've worked for 2 utilities in my lifetime. I worked for one in New York City, for Con Edison in New York, and I've worked for ComEd here in Illinois, and I've learned a lot working for both systems. And again, you'll have your issues depending on it. When you have an overhead system, yes, it may be more susceptible to certain things, but it's a lot easier to spot the issue, and it's a lot easier to repair the issue usually, unless something crazy happens. It's easier to do it on an overhead system versus on the underground system. Yes, it's less susceptible to certain things, but then you also see some of the same issues. Like, for example, you could have an underground system and have in winter, especially living in Illinois for the last 6 years, I've learned how cold it gets. Extremely cold it gets in Illinois. And critters want something warm. And when we have our underground transformers, that's a nice warm place. Our switchgear, nice warm place. A lot of that equipment is warm. So in the winter, when it gets to -20, -30, those critters like to find warm places, and they can burrow in after a certain amount of time and get into that equipment and cause problems. So you have, it's pros and cons to the equipment and how that works. We do our best, again, like I said, we do our inspections, and we try our best to mitigate, with wildlife mitigation, or whether it's, lightning arresters, if it's a storm or certain things like that. If we see an issue occurring on a regular basis or, frequently in a certain spot, we try to address the issue as best as we can at that time. But with the overhead and underground, again, it's the same thing. You can have a pro on one that's a con on the other, and vice versa. And so we do our best when we do engineer for most of our system as standard is overhead, but we also do look at those things, and we try to do as much as we can to mitigate. And if it becomes a situation that we need to, then we'll look at, if we have to make changes or certain things like that, adjustments.
Any other questions for Phil? Eric?
Is the new 100-foot tower on Lyman fully operational now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. How's that worked out?
Okay. So far it's been doing what it's doing. I mean, it's been working in terms of it's been getting the signals back and forth. Like I said, we have 4 more not towers, but 4 more distributed automation pieces that or 4 more circuits that we're going to be putting distributed automation on. So that's going to help also with that. The tower was put in place not just for the existing system that is there, but also to allow us to do that, where we can now add more of that equipment into the system to help cut down on outages in other areas and other feeders and so on and so forth. But so far it's been working great. We really appreciate it. And I know that there was some concern, especially with some of the noise that, we end up, I appreciate you reaching out to us about that. The actual, and I sent the email to you, but I hadn't gotten a response, but it's weird how it worked out. The noise that happened that night had nothing to do with the tower.
Yeah.
It was a completely separate maintenance job that was being done on site that had it just happened to occur the same day. So, we apologize to the residents for the noise that caused that night, and I've definitely had that conversation with the substation supervisor and our maintenance folks to say, when we're doing this work, number one, please be mindful that we're still very close in proximity to a residential area, and of the ordinances that the city of Darien has in terms of noise and so forth, to try to make sure that we avoid that in the future. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Phil, thank you very much for taking the time to come out tonight. I realize that there are probably, when an outage occurs, it's the worst thing that could happen to that individual at that time, and despite all the efforts that ComEd makes to make sure that our power is returned right away, you know as well as I know that people are going to be mad and upset, and they're going to be looking for someone to blame, and it's oftentimes you guys. We understand the work that you guys have done, and I will say this. From 2005 till today, there's been significant work done by ComEd in the Darien area in terms of underground, above, the thermography, all the work that you've done. And I want residents to understand that when an outage occurs, it's not necessarily a fault on ComEd's part. Sometimes it's like the wind blowing down that tree on the lines. You know, I've had a couple that night. Mine was out for a couple hours. You know, so I just sat there waiting, and we knew it was going to come back on. But people don't always understand that over the last 15 years, there has been significant work done in our area. So,
and I'll say I appreciate definitely the partnership that we have with the city and the partnership that we have with you all. And I'll tell you honestly, I appreciate when you bring issues to me, you know, because there are times that we may not realize it. You know, the system, we're building a smart system, but even the smartest system has things. And so if you see things that we don't, and when your constituents report it to you, you know, don't feel that it's an issue for me. Like, definitely I appreciate you letting us know. And if I have to go back, and Marquise will tell you, he and I have become fast best friends. You know, I'll reach out to Marquise, and I'll reach out to Kevin, and I'll reach out to Mark and say, you know, what can we do? You know, have we done everything? And you know, we move it forward, because our goal is not to have you out of power. That's never our goal. Our goal is to provide you safe, reliable power. And so, you know, we do appreciate the partnership that we have with you.
Yeah, one other observation, Phil, and we've talked about this before, and the mayor mentioned 2005, 6, and 7. What was really frustrating back then is obviously we were having a lot of problems, but there was no plan for ComEd to come in to Darien that they could show us about improvements they were going to do. And ComEd really does a much better and a really good job for us to say, hey, Darien, here's what we're going to do this year, next year, here's the things we're looking at. Similar to Mr. Golenbach does with our municipal services, where plans are laid out. So if a resident calls, they know when their street's going to get done over the next few years. And it's much easier to you know, partner up with ComEd when we can see what's going to be happening over the next few years. So again, just an observation, that is very helpful.
So one other thing, and now that you mentioned that too, I wanted to just say, there's two things I wanted to mention. So one, I know I've mentioned it at the other previous meetings, but again, we do have a website that's open to our ComEd customers that talks about system improvements. So if there are customers that are interested in finding out about the system improvements that are happening in Darien, they can go in and they can see on the map exactly what it is. And it's comed.com/system improvement map. And that's, you know, I can send that link to you to send out to the municipality, but that's one that every resident in the city of Darien can go on, comed.com/system improvement map, and they can go in, they can see tree trimming, they can see where we're installing new equipment, where we're doing, they can see the work that we're doing in the municipality and understand, you know, where we might be working in the future or where we're currently working. If they see a truck out there and they want to know what we're doing, that kind of thing. And again, you know, you as the council can always obviously reach out to me. And then secondly, and the last thing I want to mention is, I know, you know, you had spoken, the council had been speaking before about, you know, the work with the business community. And one of the things that we're trying to make sure that we get out to our residents, to our businesses, is that ComEd is also here to help. I've been sending, and I know I've been flooding you guys with emails, but with everything that's happened in this COVID-19 pandemic, ComEd has a number of programs that are out there to provide grants and help to our residents and to our businesses. We have a residential hardship program that offers up to $500 towards past due bills. We have our CHAMP program for veterans and active duty military and the armed forces. That's up to $1,000 towards past due bills. We have our nonprofit financial hardship program that offers up to $2,000 in a grant towards past due bills. We have our small business grant that's up to $1,000 in past due bills, and then we have a number of payment installment options. So, you know, the last thing that we want is for customers who are experiencing hardship to be cut off. We understand what's happening. We understand the pandemic that we're in. We understand the situation that we're in. And again, we're not in the business of cutting people off, but we need to know that you're having a hardship. We need someone to call us and tell us this is what's happening. So everyone we're asking, businesses, homeowners, residential, whatever, if you're having a hardship, call the 800 number, speak to customer service, and explain what's going on. And they are versed in every single one of the programs that we offer, and they can put you with the right program that will assist you. And we're begging people to do this because, again, we do not want to turn people off, but we need to be able to be responsible and do this in the right way. And so we're asking people to please do that. So that's all I've got to say for tonight.
Many thanks to you, Phil, and to your colleagues who joined you tonight. Thanks for spending the time with us and helping us honor our police tonight, too. We
Thank you very
appreciate
much,
that.
and congratulations to those folks. I mean, that was some beautiful, beautiful ceremony and some great video and some great things, stories to hear about everything that's going on now. It's nice to hear some great stories about what's going on with our law enforcement and, the work that they're doing in the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just real briefly, April 30th is Arbor Day in the city of Darien. Kathy Minardi, who won a Heart of Darien Award last year, was really the driving force with our Arbor Day. So Friday, April 30th at 9:30 a.m., there'll be a planting at the Darien Community Park. And at 11 o'clock, there'll be a that planting is for the 2021 year, and Darien's 22nd annual Arbor Day celebration will take place at 11 a.m. at the Smart Oaks Park. So they're trying to do last year's recipients as well as this year's recipients. And the last thing I'm going to mention is that many of you might be aware of the fact that the Inspector General did a comprehensive report on how the EPA handled the Sterigenics ethylene oxide issue. And if any of you have not read that report, Senator Curran made a statement on that, which I have a copy of. But and the Chicago Tribune had an article on it as well. The city of Darien will be putting something out in our Direct Connect this Thursday, and it will give further explanation of exactly what went on, what didn't take place. Some of the information appears to be a pretty damning indictment of the federal government as well as elements of the state. I would advise you to read the report so you have a very thorough understanding of what took place. And again, this was an issue that directly touched Darien as well as touching Willowbrook. Actually, Willowbrook, we played a role in working with them. And we had our advocacy group that did a lot of work to bring this to the attention of people. And we had the cooperation of mayors in Willowbrook and Hinsdale and Clarendon Hills working with us and working with the advocacy group to get rid of Sterigenics. But read the report so you have a better understanding. And with that, I'll go to the city clerk's report.
I have reminders for anybody who received statements of economic interest from DuPage County. They are due on May 1st, and the county does have penalties if you don't meet the deadline. Also, the ethics statements for the city of Darien are due on May 1st.
And if I could mention, I received my statement from the city, which they put in my mailbox and I filled out and returned. I did not receive an electronic version from the county, and I realized that happened to Treasurer Corrin last year. And I was fortunate enough to have Alderwoman Sullivan send me the email she received, and I knew my ID number, so I actually clicked on her link and put my information, and I was able to complete my report, but I did not get an electronic copy of that this year. So if you haven't received that, you make sure you call somebody or you deal with that. So I hope all of you did receive the electronic version of that, and you get that done before May 3rd, because it is a $5 a day fine beyond May 3rd, 2021.
And also, I do believe that everybody has received a reminder notice if they have not completed their economic statement for the county.
Okay. Takes us to the city administrator's report. Brian?
No report, Mayor, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody? Department head information questions for the chief? Anything for Chief Thomas? aside from the fact of saying we're all pretty fortunate to have your leadership and the department that we have. We thank you for that. Any questions for Mr. Gombeck? Dan?
I have a question for myself. No, just kidding.
Do you have-
Mayor, City Council, Dunkin' Donuts will be opening this week at the new location, followed by Padrino's. So I know it's been a long time waiting, and barring any type of inspections, they will be open by the end of the week.
Is there any kind of ribbon cutting ceremony or anything going on?
Not yet. I mean, typically we'll arrange that through the Chamber of Commerce and the mayor for all the elected officials to be able to come out there. So, but they will do something, I'm sure.
Eric, we talked to the chamber, and one of the components of our work with the EDC is to have all new businesses come before the council and be introduced to the council by the chamber executive director. And Padrino's and the new Dunkin' Donuts, as well as the Carla's Red Hots and some of the others.
Yeah.
Tizzy's Ice Cream, as well as the new Carriage Greens reopening, are all going to merit a presentation to the city council.
Great.
Just so you know.
Good.
Anything else, Dan?
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
All right, standing committee reports. Do any of the aldermen have, I'm sorry, Michael, why do I want to skip the button?
I think everybody does.
I think that's just
Just numbers. All right, guys, go to sleep.
Treasurer Corrin, the warrant.
Okay, thank you. As long as I do have the podium, I do want to echo pretty much what's been said already, though. It's refreshing to see the presentation the chief did and the wonderful officers we have here. Sometimes you just watch the news every day and you want to bang your head against a wall because you hear about all the negatives and you rarely hear about all the positives and the wonderful people. And I really appreciate him bringing it to the front here today for everybody to see something that's really positive going on instead of just the couple negatives that have been out there that really seem to get the emphasis. So with that being said, I'd like to request council's approval of warrant number 2021-24 in the amount of $447,498.23 from the listed funds. Payroll for the period ended April 8th in the amount of $254,151.80 for a total to be approved of $701,650.03.
Motion to approve. Alderwoman Sullivan, seconded by Alderman Belzak. Any questions or comments for Treasurer Corrin? If none, the roll.
Sullivan,
Aye.
Belzak,
Aye.
Clistic,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
Gustafson,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
6 ayes and 1 absent.
The warrant's been approved. The monthly report, Mike?
Okay, the revenue and expenditure report for the 11 months ended March 31st reflects general fund year-to-date revenue of $15,486,016, expenses of $10,612,506, current balance $5,839,046. Water fund year-to-date revenue of $6,839,588, expenses of $6,404,395, current balance of $3,894,717. Motor fuel tax fund year-to-date revenue of $1,451,717, expenses of $655,486, current balance of $1,355,201. Water depreciation fund year-to-date revenue of $7,154, expenses of $15,604, current balance of $2,430,543, and the capital improvement fund year-to-date revenue of $263,747, expenses of $570,158 for a current balance of $6,336,116.
Any questions for Treasurer Corrin on the monthly report? If none, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Now we go to standing committee reports. Alderman Belzak.
Yes, the Municipal Services Committee meeting is scheduled for a week from today, Monday, April 26th at 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you, Tom. Alderman Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The police committee meeting that was scheduled for tonight was canceled due to a lack of agenda items. Our next meeting is going to take place on Monday, May 17th, 6 p.m. across the street in the police training room, pending agenda items.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Corrin?
Sorry, time for my quarterly update here. We are having our police pension fund meeting Thursday, April 29th, 7 o'clock across the street in the police training room. So it won't be remote, it'll be in person this time.
Thank you, Mike. Alderwoman Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next Admin Finance Committee meeting will be held on May 3rd at 6 p.m. in the conference room upstairs. And we had a very productive and interactive Economic Development Committee meeting last Monday, April 12th. The date had to be changed from our standing date. And the chamber participated. Mayor already referenced some of the plans to highlight Darien businesses, especially some of our new businesses. And the chamber is going to be working with those businesses as well for like a traditional ribbon cutting. But something the chamber is going to unveil in partnership with the city is a springtime spotlight, springtime in Darien, kind of an incentive program to highlight special offerings from businesses, whether it's a special sandwich deal at Chuck's or discounts, and just to bring attention in business, to our area from the community and from maybe even outside the community. You see Restaurant Week things going on in the suburbs now that used to be mostly a city thing. So this is going to be a little different, but our take on trying to promote local businesses. And they talk through other things like virtual business expos and marketing videos, but lots of great dialogue and collaboration between the Economic Development Committee and the Chamber.
Thank you, Mary.
Oh, and the next meeting, I'm sorry, one more last thing.
Okay.
The next meeting of the Economic Development Committee meeting will be on May 6th.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to questions and comments, agenda related, and I don't believe anybody has a question or comment. Takes us to old business, there being none. We go to consent agenda, there being none. We go to new business. We have item A, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the purchase of one new 2021 Ford Police Interceptor all-wheel drive hybrid from Curry Motors Commercial Center in the amount of $40,927. Motion to approve. Alderman Belzak, second by Alderman Kenny. Discussion. This will be our first hybrid, I believe, in the fleet, and we're happy that we're moving in that direction, and we look forward to moving in that direction more in the future. If there's no questions or discussion, the roll.
Belzak.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Gustafson.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
6 ayes and 1 absent.
The item has been approved. Takes us to questions and comments and announcement of a general nature. Do any of the aldermen have things they'd like to share? Alderman Clistic. excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor. Two quick items. The first one I want to mention that the advocacy group in Darien here is called Stop Sterigenics. Alderman Lester Vaughn's wife played a big role. Lauren Caseberg played a big role in bringing attention to ethylene oxide and the carcinogen that was, unfortunately put into our neighborhood. So there's a lot of Darien residents, a lot of Willowbrook community residents that stood up and said, hey, we're going to form an advocacy group called Stop Sterigenics. They brought this issue to highlight. They put a lot of pressure on local communities, which got people active. And if you follow social media, you'll see this is getting a lot of attention in Georgia, Arizona, New Mexico. So a lot of that started right here. So I want to thank all the residents that were part of it, including my wife, Naringa's another resident that played a big part in that too. So I just want to mention them. And then the second item too, a couple months ago, I made the comment about laid back. I know a lot of people maybe liked it. And listen to your discussion, and Alderman Gustafson, he's bringing a couple opportunities to the city. And you mentioned that the EDC does a lot with the current businesses, and I think that's really, really good. And I think, with my opinion, I'm seeing maybe a little bit of a disconnect. I know Dan does a lot of work. That's not Dan's full-time job, reaching out to getting new businesses, new property owners, and so sometimes this is additional workload for Dan. And the EDC does a lot of work, a lot of good work with the current businesses that I have. So I sort of come to understand my laid-back approach. Maybe it's not laid back, but we don't have, as Brian would say, a proper process maybe to advocate the business property owners that have empty property fronts, maybe, right? So maybe that my frustration with laid back is more or less a process that we can maybe improve on, because you have an alderman that brought 2 opportunities, cannabis and A&W, and he's doing volunteering his time on this. And I know Dan's really busy with what he does. I don't know if there can be a different process or maybe a different way to look at it, because we take care of the current businesses really well, but how does someone come in with the new one?
Well,
So
first of all, let me clarify my statement regarding EDC. Last year during COVID, the EDC took on the task of helping maintain businesses. It was our concern not to lose businesses in the city. So I actually asked them to focus on that. But in addition to that, they're going out and actually talking to businesses, and they visited every one of the major businesses. We have like 240 something brick and mortar businesses, and they visited those businesses, just the 9 people on that committee, as well as myself making phone calls. And in the process of doing that, they came across, they found out that certain businesses would tell them, they did a survey, and they actually asked, what kind of businesses would you like to see come into Darien? Mary's aware of that because that came up at EDC. And they developed a whole grouping of what people want. People want more businesses in Darien that are family oriented, not necessarily like a pizza place that just has something for the kids, but of something where the whole family could go together. So a lot of good came out of that. But now that we're kind of beyond COVID, the EDC is taking a more aggressive approach with regard to promoting the current businesses. And Dan Gombeck does an outstanding job. I mean, I look at the new businesses that we have in Darien, and every one of those he touched. He was involved in probably making that contact and bringing them into the city. Now, when I make calls, I made a call a couple weeks ago to Mike Baracco, who owns Zazzo's Pizza. Mike told me he'd like to move into a central location of Darien. And I mentioned to Mike to take a look at this Steak and Shake site. Mike went over there with his brother Dominic. They looked at it. They determined that it was a little small for what they wanted to do, but they're interested in building something within the middle of Darien to better serve their population. Problem is, we don't have that piece of property that they need, so we're looking to work with them. So we are doing those kind of things, and everything I come across, I share with Dan. I had lunch at a restaurant last week. The owner said he wouldn't mind moving to Darien. He said, you could find me 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, I'll move to Darien. I shared that with Dan. Dan called the guy. I don't think the meeting ever took place, but we're doing that. So I wouldn't say we're laid back. I'd say we are aggressive. You got to remember something. We don't have a lot of sites available, where we have a parcel of land that needs to be developed. We don't have that. And if we did have that, I think we'd be shopping more for that kind of business. But right now, I'm still focusing on maintaining. I don't want to lose the businesses that we have. But I will share with you that today we had a meeting with an owner of a center, and he's looking forward to doing something with that center, which would add additional businesses to that center. So, I mean, I believe we are aggressive. I would disagree with you, Tom. Mm-hmm. I believe we are taking an aggressive approach. I guess that's all I can say.
Yeah, and what I was saying is, no, EDC is doing a good job. I'm just saying making an easy process, that's all. Yeah, I know he's going to Dan, and Dan's doing it, but it just seems odd to me that an alderman's got, got the 2 opportunities for it, so.
Anything else? Mary?
I know other people have already spoken tonight, but, I really so thoroughly enjoyed the presentation that Chief Thomas gave, and the fact that we got to meet families along with the officers. I really feel like I'm bursting with civic pride and joy right now, having had the opportunity to get that introduction. And we don't have that large of a police force to really know the background and the story and how these people have come to us, as well as our existing officers and the amazing work they've done, and also to honor our 4-legged officers. And I just saying it was a real feel-good moment for me as an elected official and as a community member. And I'm hoping everyone else enjoyed it too.
If I could add one other thing, we sent out invitations last week to about 8 police departments and about 8 fire protection districts, as well as to our county board, as well as to Jim Durkin and John Curran. This week we sent one out to Sheriff Mendrick, and we're going to be sending one to the Illinois State Police with regard to our first responders parade that's going to take place September 11th. Those invitations have gone out, and we're looking for additional first responder groups we can invite. Lastly, I want to offer my congratulations to Alderman Schauer, Alderman Kenny, Alderwoman Sullivan, and Alderman Belzak for their victories. I am extremely happy to have all 4 of them back on the City Council. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with you. You're all dedicated to your constituents, and I think your constituents realize that by putting you back in office. I also want to congratulate Alderman Klistek. As you know, his campaign didn't turn out, I think, the way he wanted it to.
It is.
But I want to congratulate him on running a very good campaign. And I think he worked diligently to get his message out to people. And Tom, I look forward to continuing serving with you the next 2 years. So thank you to all of you for your hard work, and congratulations to all of you. Anyone else? If nothing, motion to adjourn? Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Vaughn. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned at 9:05.
Great.
Thank you.